You bought a cool gun, you have to figure out what to feed it. This is Alan with Quarter Horse Arms, and in this podcast I want to talk mostly about defensive ammunition. The reason being is that a lot of the standard ball ammunition or full metal jacket ammunition, especially with guns like 9mm, it's likely to overpenetrate, which is a fancy word of saying it's going to go through somebody. And, every state I'm familiar with is you own the bullet from the time it leaves the gun until the time it stops. So if you are using regular full metal jacket ammunition and you shoot a bad guy and the round goes through and hits a good guy, you did a good thing and you did a bad thing, and the bad thing is going to get you charged with a crime. And so as far as defensive ammo goes, if I'm going to have to shoot somebody, I want to make sure that it's not going to hit the person behind them or on the other side of a wall for that matter. So there's a bunch of options out there. For most cases, you'll see hollow point or JHP or jacketed hollow point. Some of them have little notches cut into them. It's essentially, a jacketed bullet, and it's got basically a lead core in it. And with those notches and stuff, when it hits something like a body, it causes the slug to mushroom out and cause more damage. So if you recover the bullet, it actually kind of looks like it's peeling back like a banana. So you have a much larger slug traveling through the body. There are options to this, and you'll see things like ammunition rated, you'll have normal ammunition, then you'll have plus P or plus P plus. The P is pressure. The plus means you got more pressure because they've stuffed more powder into the bullet. And the plus P plus, you get even more powder in there. So are you getting a bigger bang? Yeah. Are you getting a slightly higher muzzle velocity? Yeah. But you have to find out whether or not your gun can handle it. Not every gun can handle those types of ammunition, and you need to be very careful. You do not want a gun blowing up because you put the wrong ammo in. The other thing I'd have to question is, why would you want to put plus P ammunition into a gun that you're carrying for defense? People are generally not wearing body armor, so run-of-the-mill standard hollow point ammunition works. I actually kind of liked my HydroShock ammunition, which is a hollow point, but it has a little spiky thing in the middle, and you get even more damage. The round, I think, was made about 30 years ago, and I got introduced to it by the police I worked with up north because they were required to use those rounds. But when you're firing non-standard ammunition, or you're not firing range ammunition, one of the things you have to be concerned about is whether or not your gun can handle that round. And I don't mean that it's too powerful. That's a whole thing with the plus P stuff. I'm talking about, will the round feed? Because if you look at a standard 9mm round, it's got a nice bullet shape to it, a nice little cone. You get a hollow point 9mm, and it's kind of like a flat front. So at the time when I was using HydroShock ammunition, 9mm pistol, absolutely no problem whatsoever. My .45, on the other hand, the exact same ammunition, would jam on the feed ramp. So as it was being pushed up in by the gun, it would jam. Because the feed ramp was steep enough and the round was flat enough that it just didn't get that smooth edge to load it into the chamber. And I could manually load the gun. And then after I fired it, most of the time the recoil energy would force the new round into the chamber. On the other hand, if I'm going to be using it defensively, being in a bad situation and potentially having a gun jam on you would be a bad thing. And quite frankly, in a bad situation is the wrong time to find out that that's your problem. So obviously I had to switch ammunitions, and I think for that gun, I actually went to just a regular old jacketed hollow point, and it worked fine. Other ammunition, there are things like polymer bullets now, which generally have a copper polymer blend. They are a lot lighter. So the loaded magazine for a 9mm or 45 is about a third less weight because the slugs don't weigh the same. Similarly, they don't carry the same. Meaning, for extremely long distances, the bullet's so light that, even the slightest breeze is going to affect it. But the advantage with those rounds is they don't overpenetrate. So things like those polymer bullets that have grooves that cause it to spin out in the body, or the hollow points or jacketed hollow points, or the Hydra shocks, they're designed not to go through the body. That doesn't mean they won't. That in most conditions, they'll stay within the body, and that's actually kind of what you want. Having it go through someone and hit somebody else, I don't ever want to have to deal with, and I'm willing to bet neither do you. So I actually switched my ammunition to the polymer bullets. There's several manufacturers out there now. One is like the ARX and Scepter, another brand made by Novex, which are actually neat ammunitions. And if you consider that for defensive ammo, if you're shooting at 100 yards for defense, that's really not defense at that point. That's offense. But at this point, for me, with my 45, not wanting my pants to fall down and not wanting to have to wear suspenders, the lighter bullets make a noticeable difference in the weight sitting on my hip. So, advantages, yes. Do they overpenetrate? No. But whenever you get ammunition, and I can't emphasize this enough, is you need to fire your defensive ammo to see how it carries. Hollow point will function just a little different than your range ammunition, and you want to find out whether or not you're going to have any problems with that particular ammunition. So it's just like everything else. You need to practice. You need to experiment with the rounds, which ones are giving you the best results you like. Meaning, some of the rounds, are they hitting the target where you want to? Some of the ammunitions may be perfectly good in a gun with a 4-inch barrel, and then shooting it out of a 2-inch barrel, it doesn't perform the same. And part of that's because with the shorter barrel, the powder is not providing its full propellant force behind the bullet. So those are the kind of things you want to test. So for example, a 357 firing out of a 4 or 6-inch revolver barrel is going to function and carry very differently than firing out of a revolver with a 2-inch barrel. So you just need to know those things. So, for example, with the polymer bullets that I'm using for defense, I know they don't carry long distance. I'm not worried about it. They do have a slightly higher muzzle velocity, and they do not overpenetrate under most circumstances. So that means I'm okay with it. And that's where you have to be with your ammunition. And, I could put plugs in for all the different kinds. I mean, I think there's even an ammunition. It kind of looks like a pineapple at the top with all these little pieces that are supposed to come flying apart inside the body. And I was told at one point California considered those to be illegal because they caused too much damage. And I'm sitting there thinking about it going, well, I wouldn't have had to shoot you if you weren't threatening my life. So what difference does it make to me that I defended myself? And that's about all I can think of on this particular podcast. Maybe in another one I'll spend some time on other ammunitions, but as far as defensive ammo goes, shop around, do some reading, but don't read too much into what people wrote. A lot of it is what I'll call touchy-feely. If it feels good when you shoot it and you're hitting the target when you shoot, it's bound to be a pretty good ammo. It doesn't have to be the most expensive to be perfectly functional. So talk to a gun dealer. Talk to people that you know that are shooting enthusiasts. Feel free to drop me a line. Okay, having said all that, feel free to email me to info@quarterhorsearms.com. You can call or text. I'd love to hear what you guys think. Maybe ideas for podcasts or something you want to listen to. You can call or text 919-808-6480. And feel free to check out our website at quarterhorsearms.com. And I'm Alan with Quarter Horse Arms in Snow Camp, North Carolina. You folks be safe out there. Have a great day.